Peter B. Collins, news and comment. It's another day of infamy. It's Thursday, December 14th, 2017. And this is the day that Trump's Federal Communications Commission voted to kill net neutrality rules that were passed during the Obama administration. And it won't have an immediate effect. But I tie this together with a huge move in the media community today. Disney announced it is acquiring most of the assets of 21st Century Fox. That's Rupert Murdoch's Hollywood arm, and it includes the cable sports channels and a few other assets. And what we're seeing is the Internet, which used to be a level playing field for all parties, big or small, is going to be reconfigured with fast lanes to benefit the bulked-up Disney Corporation as it pushes Pixar product and Star Wars movies and Disney feature films like A Wrinkle in Time, my friend Catherine Hand's picture that's coming out in a couple of months. And they are going to be able to put heavy influence on the Internet service providers to make sure that their content gets delivered without buffering, without glitches. And little people, perhaps like me, will pay the price, where when you log on to download a podcast, it might take you a bit longer because I won't be able to operate in the toll lanes. I'll be over there behind the trucks in the curb lane of the freeway, if you follow my metaphor. Now, there's been massive protest. It didn't do any good. The fix was in, and the 3 Republican commissioners knew that their patrons will take care of them when they leave the FCC through the revolving door and go to work for Verizon or AT&T or Google. And Ajit Pai, the FCC chair, Orwellingly mouthed these words: "We are helping consumers and promoting competition. Broadband providers will have more incentive to build networks, especially to underserved areas." Now, he didn't explain that. It's simply a talking point. And there is no incentive under this deregulation for broadband providers to speed up delivery without charging you more, or to make broadband available in areas that currently aren't wired. So this is just another industry giveaway. And one of the dissenting Democrats on the commission, Mignon Clyburn, said, "I dissent because I am among the millions outraged. Outraged because the FCC pulls its own teeth, abdicating responsibility to protect the nation's broadband consumers." And the Disney-Murdoch deal, $53 billion or so. And it puts Disney on a par as both a producer and distributor, like Netflix, Apple with their movie development, Amazon, Google and Facebook with their various audio enterprises and video enterprises. Bob Iger, Disney's chairman and CEO, will stay on for another 2 years. He was planning to retire in 2019, but hey, there are more stock options for him to pocket. And Rupert himself asked Bob Iger to stay on as a condition of the deal. So let's be clear, this does not include the Fox News Channel, the Fox Broadcast Network and its owned and operated television stations, or the FS1 sports cable channel. The regional sports cable channels were included, but not the national one, and I don't quite understand that. But Murdoch will take these businesses and a handful of other properties, which I thought were under the News Corp moniker, and apparently form a new listed company, meaning that it'll be traded on stock exchanges. So this is a major move. And it shows that broadcast television, which is not dead, is in decline. And these distributors are scrambling to get a good foothold in the new digital world. And, of course, we will pay. We don't know exactly how, but we know that you and I will pay. Now, one motivator for Murdoch to sell at this point, he is getting old. Maybe he wants to dispose of some of his assets before he kicks. But there's another motivator, because the 21st Century Fox Corporation is alleged to have paid millions of dollars in bribes to South American soccer officials to secure major broadcast contracts. These are documents that were revealed in a prosecution underway in the United States. And it's pretty damaging. There are already some parties who pled guilty to being a part of this bribery and money laundering scheme. And you know that the rights to football, which is what they call soccer everywhere else in the world, these are very lucrative franchises. They get huge viewership. And this one competition, the Copa Libertadores, Liberty Cup, is the focus of this bribery scandal. And Murdoch is no stranger to scandal. He had the hacking, voicemail hacking scandal by his newspapers in London. He shut down the news of the world as a result of that. And his problems here in the United States followed him to England, where the regulators gave him a real hard time over the B-Sky B satellite TV deal. So it appears that Murdoch got out in the nick of time. May have to make more payoffs, though, to get this to all go away. Robert Perry's done it again at consortiumnews.com, another critical analysis as we slog through the Russiagate scandal. And yesterday I mentioned the text messages between the FBI investigator Peter Strzok and his partner, girlfriend, who also worked at the FBI as an attorney. And Strzok and this attorney girlfriend of his, whose name is Lisa Page, they sent a bunch of text messages back and forth, and it appeared at one point they thought that by using burner phones we would never find out. And I credit Bob Perry because he dug into this more deeply and got more damaging text messages. These were leaked. They're now, I think, being made public by a congressional committee. But it is pretty damaging. And what Perry analyzes here is that these top people who were essentially sharing pillow talk about their fears of a Trump presidency, they were deeply involved in the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails that led to the bizarre announcement by James Comey on July 6th or 7th of 2016 that Hillary would not be indicted. So a couple of quotes here. Page texted to Strzok on August 6th of 2016, "Maybe you're meant to stay where you are," and this is the point where Strzok has been assigned to the Trump-Russia investigation by the FBI. "Maybe you're meant to stay there because you're meant to protect the country from that menace." And she sent Strzok a link to a David Brooks column in the Times. "There comes a time when neutrality and laying low become dishonorable. If you're not in revolt, you're in cahoots. When this period and your name are mentioned decades hence, your grandkids will look away in shame." And Strzok responded to that by saying, "Well, of course, I'll try and approach it that way. I just know it'll be tough at times. I can protect our country at many levels. Not sure if that helps." Then there was an August 2016 meeting with the FBI's Deputy Director, Andrew McCabe, and Strzok wrote to Page, apparently they were both in that meeting, "I want to believe the path you threw out for consideration in Andy's office, that there's no way he gets elected. But I'm afraid we can't take that risk." And then he added, "It's like an insurance policy in the unlikely event that you die before you're 40. Now, we can only speculate about what they truly mean. A lot of this is pretty elliptical. But it does show that these two top people were talking between themselves about what they saw as the serious risk of a Trump presidency. and they hint at efforts to derail that. The excerpts I read to you yesterday, one of them was saying that Hillary has just got to win. And so I've linked to Bob Perry's piece for you to read, and I hope you will see that it's a fascinating look at the unraveling of this scandal. And I want to juxtapose this, almost in a schizophrenic way, with this 31-page report. I mean, trees were felled by Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Washington Post, in order to bring us this report, which is based on 50 sources, and I can only find one source who is actually named. It's toward the very end of the story, and it's Trump's new envoy to Ukraine. Everybody else is just anonymous, and it gives this kind of omniscience to the article. And what I clearly infer, and this is only my supposition, is that John Brennan, the former CIA director, and his nominal boss, Director of National Intelligence, Jimmy Clapper, they were primary sources for this story, and I consider them the primary authors or inventors of the Russiagate scandal. And this article, there are two of them at the Times today, both very lengthy, is allegedly going to tell us how Trump's skepticism of U.S. intelligence on Russia left an election threat unchecked. And so they use this as a reason to recap all of their reporting for the past year and a half. As usual, things that I consider to be allegations and unproven assertions are treated as fact, including the intelligence community's assessments, notably the January 6th, 2017 one. And once again, the Washington Post is saying everybody else believes this unproven argument or conspiracy theory that we've been promoting. Why doesn't Trump? What's wrong with him? Now, one of the hints here is that there was a source, some sort of a mole, in the Kremlin. And they're a little bit more forthcoming about what the mole had to say, and that the mole specifically says that Putin directed this and that it only cost about $500,000. But I want to underscore something that I've been saying for months, and that is that if Obama and Clapper and Brennan knew or suspected all of this, at any time before Obama left office, he could have declassified the information that they say is evidence that supports these publicly unproven assertions. And so I can continue to be gobsmacked by the way the media is now writing book-length articles, again, based on evidence that we can't see and anonymous sources. And the one named source in this 31-page epic is Kurt Volker, the former NATO ambassador who is now serving as special envoy to Ukraine. And he doesn't add a whole lot to this except a conversation with Trump about why Ukraine is important. Then, get this, there was a second epic piece, 59 pages long. I declined to print the entire thing out. And after I had reviewed these stories and I went back to compile my agenda for today's podcast, I went to the Washington Post website and did a detailed search for this article, and it does not appear. It's not on the homepage where it was prominently displayed with the article I just referenced. A search by the headline of the article and the date of its publication produced 0 results. So did the Post take this story down for some reason, or am I just having some kind of internet issues? It's possible. But this article is headlined, Obama's Secret Struggle to Retaliate Against Putin's Election Interference. And this is where we hear about the mole in the Kremlin. Let me just read this. It's kind of an early part of the article. The outlines of the Russian assault on the U.S. election were increasingly apparent. Hackers with ties to Russian intelligence services had been rummaging through Democratic Party computer networks as well as some Republican systems for more than a year. In July, the FBI had opened an investigation of contacts between Russian officials and Trump associates. And on July 22nd, nearly 20,000 emails stolen from the DNC were dumped online by WikiLeaks. Now, this is a recitation that doesn't use any qualifiers like alleged, it's been reported, it's been asserted, anonymous sources say, evidence that we can't show you indicates, none of that. This is written as just a statement of known facts. And so I'll continue to search the Washington Post website. If the story reappears and I can link to it, I will do so in the show file for today's podcast. And here's another one to add to the Russophobia in America today. In the Washington, D.C. area, there is an FM station licensed to Reston, Virginia. And for a while, it was airing the bluegrass music that used to be featured on public radio station WAMU. WAMU ditched the bluegrass in favor of news talk. And to mollify the people who love that bluegrass music, they put it on an HD channel on this FM in Reston, Virginia. And the owner of that station is named John Garzelia. And he decided to accept a contract from the Russian-sponsored. So WAMU, running short of money, canceled their contract with the radio station, and Garzelia turned to Radio Sputnik. And they pay him $30,000 a month to air their 24-hour-a-day feed of news and talk programming on his HD channel. And so he decided that because he expected a lot of complaints from the bluegrass fans, that he would tell the Justice Department that he had made a deal with Radio Sputnik. And they surprised him by demanding that he register as a foreign agent under FARA, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Now, this is what the government has forced Russia Today and Sputnik to do. But this is the equivalent of running a satellite feed of right-wing talk or 24 hours of infomercials. And neither the FCC or the Justice Department would do anything to interfere with the obvious deception that I find in right-wing talk shows and in commercial infomercials. But this radio station operator has been forced to register as a foreign agent. The final touches on the secretly negotiated backroom tax cut deal for corporations and America's most wealthy taxpayers, we're told, is finished. And we're only told a few outlines: that the corporate tax rate, instead of being dropped from 35 to 20%, is going to be nudged up to 21%. The top individual rate will be ratcheted down from 39.6 to 37%. The onerous ban or removal of deductions for high out-of-pocket medical expenses, that's been restored. The provision allowing graduate students who receive tuition to avoid paying taxes, that's been restored. But the repeal of the individual mandate that will upset the Affordable Care Act medical insurance marketplace, that's still in there. The repeal of the ban on energy extraction from the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, that's been left in there. And they completely eliminated the corporate alternative minimum tax, which does away with the glitch that we reported that could lead all corporations to essentially nullify their tax deductions. You knew they were going to fix that one. So one honest comment from Ron Johnson of Wisconsin: we were literally trying to squeeze about $2 trillion in tax reform into a $1.5 trillion box. And that's been a problem. There's another problem, and that is John McCain is back in the hospital at Walter Reed. Thad Cochran of Mississippi has been in and out of the hospital, and the Republicans desperately need their votes in the next few days in order to get this package rammed through and onto Trump's desk before Christmas, as he is hopefully tweeting. But what we're also learning is that the changes that I just mentioned increase the need to generate revenue. And so working families, of course, will take up the slack because the corporate tax cuts are permanent, but the personal tax cuts were set to expire at the end of 2025. But to put more fictional cash on paper, Republicans are considering having those working family tax cuts expire in 2024. And I credit David Sirota and colleagues at the International Business Times. They did a deep study of the financial disclosure forms of top members of Congress, and you won't be surprised to learn that key Republicans directly overseeing the tax plan will reap a personal windfall from provisions that they engineered, because these are lawmakers who hold major interest in pass-through entities, and by tweaking the treatment of pass-through income, these lawmakers will line their pockets with even more money. 13 of them have between $36 and $163 million worth of ownership stakes in 40 real estate or property-related partnerships, corporations, and investment trusts. Yeah, taking care of themselves. That's the Republican way. Every day I pause for a second and thank the people who support my work here at the Peter B. Collins Podcast with your subscriptions. And today I want to mention Michael Meadows just took out a new annual subscription. Thank you very much, Michael. Also, longtime stalwart supporter Faith Peoples. Also, Benny Alto up there in Oregon, and Sandra Fish. They're all regular subscribers to this podcast. I'd like you to join them. Just visit peterbcollins.com, click on menu, pull it down, click on Become a Subscriber. It takes you to the sign-up page. You can choose $5, $10, $20 a month. Our $50 annual subscription earns you a bonus book. And don't forget the Peter B. Collins app. It's for iPhone and iPad, iOS devices, and it's available in the Apple App Store for just $2.99. And for my subscribers today, you'll have first crack at the latest in-depth interview I'm releasing with California attorney Larry Bragman. Now, Bragman has been an attorney who's been involved in the legal challenges to Trump's effort to complete the construction and begin the operation of the Dakota Access Pipeline. This was the focus of the Standing Rock protest just a year ago. And here's an excerpt from my conversation with Larry Bragman, where he talks about the initial success that they've had with the challenge to Trump's decision to proceed with Dakota Access.
So the Dakota Access challenge actually was procedurally successful because the judge in Washington, D.C., who has been presiding over the case for several years, actually held that the president's reversal of the Obama administration's decision on Dakota Access, the decision to stop it, that the reversal of that decision violated procedural rules under the environmental laws of the United States. And he also did bring up the fact in his decision that there are still issues that remain about tribal and treaty rights over Lake Oahe, under which this pipeline flows, which was really the nexus of, and it was the galvanizing issue that gave birth to the Standing Rock movement, which really was born from the youth in that community who saw what was happening and were just, so worried about the loss of habitat and drinking water. Water is life. And, the pipeline was put directly under the source of the water for the tribe and its whole economy, its whole existence. So that in that case, the judge did make a preliminary decision that the reversal of the pipeline by the Trump administration did violate procedural rules. However, what remains, more importantly, is whether he will impose an injunction and stop the flow of oil through the pipeline, and that remains open right now. A decision has not been handed down.
Subscribers can hear the full interview with Larry Bragman. It's available today at iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, and peterbcollins.com. And this is another interview from Marin TV, where I volunteer for a program series, and you will hear some discussion of some of our local issues, because Larry Bragman also sits on the Board of Trustees of a local water district that is fighting Monsanto and the use of glyphosate on the watershed to try to reduce weeds and other fuels. So you'll find some of it maybe a little local, but overall, I think Larry Bragman is a very interesting guy who's doing some great work. Now to the sex offender registry. Morgan Spurlock, the filmmaker best known for Super Size Me, has admitted to acts of sexual misconduct in an open letter. He admits to being unfaithful to every wife and girlfriend he's ever had. And he wrote, "As I sit around watching hero after hero, man after man, fall at the realization of their past indiscretions, I don't sit by and wonder who will be next. I wonder, when will they come for me?" He also said that he was victim of sexual abuse as a child, used to have a drinking problem, and he promises to do better. Tavis Smiley is not going down without a fight. PBS suspended him yesterday indefinitely after a law firm was hired to investigate what are called credible claims from multiple accusers. Now, I watched a video of Tavis Smiley on my Facebook newsfeed this morning, and he adamantly defies this, and he does seem like he's willing to fight. He also notes, let me first read from the PBS statement, this investigation included interviews with witnesses as well as with Mr. Smiley. But Tavis says that he was only interviewed after he demanded to confront the accusations, even though he's not allowed to know his accusers or confront them. He said he heard about the investigation from friends of his who were contacted by the PBS retained law firm. So I want to also be clear, because I give Tavis Smiley the benefit of the doubt, innocent until proven guilty. I've met him a couple of times. I think he's a really interesting individual. So he made this denial. He said, PBS overreacted and conducted a biased and sloppy investigation, which led to a rush to judgment and trampling on a reputation I've spent an entire lifetime trying to establish. Let me assure you, I have never groped, inappropriately exposed myself, or coerced any colleague in the workplace ever in my 30-year career. But Smiley is not accused of groping, coercing, or inappropriately exposing himself. So that is a carefully crafted denial that apparently doesn't relate to the accusations. In a really disturbing op-ed in the New York Times, actress Salma Hayek revealed the years that she spent saying no to Harvey Weinstein. She said that he followed her to movie sets all over the place. And here's a quick quote from her op-ed. She said no to opening the door to him at all hours of the night, hotel after hotel, location after location, where he would show up unexpectedly, including one location where I was doing a movie he wasn't even involved with. No to me taking a shower with him. No to letting him watch me take a shower. No to letting him give me a massage. No to letting a naked friend of his give me a massage. No to letting him give me oral sex. No to my getting naked with another woman. And she says that he pressured her on the Frida Kahlo picture, Frida, to provide more nudity and more sex scenes. She finally relented and said that she would do a sex scene with another woman. He demanded full frontal nudity. So I arrived on the set the day we were to shoot the scene, and I believed I would save the movie. For the first and last time in my career, I had a nervous breakdown. My body began to shake uncontrollably. My breath was short. I began to cry and cry, unable to stop. as if I were throwing up tears. Russell Simmons, facing new accusations. He says his contacts with these 4 women were all consensual, but 3 of them describe it graphically as incidents of rape. A Republican legislator who had just joined the Kentucky House after many years as a religious pastor, Dan Johnson. He had defiantly denied allegations that he sexually assaulted a teenage girl in the basement of his home. But yesterday, he drove his car to a bridge, got out, and with a single gunshot, took his life. At the Department of Interior, a survey that was conducted before the Me Too movement surfaced, started in the first quarter of this year, a survey of 30,000 employees shows that 85% of the employees 35% they had said they had felt some form of harassment or intimidation, and 85% of those said they had to continue to interact with the person responsible for their mistreatment. 8% of employees reported sexual harassment, 20% negative treatment based on age, 16% based on their sex. About 44% of the entire Interior Department workforce participated in the study. And the area with the biggest problems is the National Park Service. Nearly, more than a quarter of the nearly 10,000 park employees who responded had experienced or witnessed some form of harassment. I guess they get out there in the wilds and their urges run wild. Tragic figures, likely very conservative lowball estimates of the number of Rohingya Muslims who were killed just in the month of August as the expulsion, the ethnic cleansing from Rakhine State in Myanmar began. There are now 640,000 Rohingya living in refugee camps in neighboring Bangladesh. Now, the good news is there may be a deal between Myanmar and Bangladesh to allow Rohingya people back into Rakhine State. But we don't have safeguards in place. It could be just another ruse to kill more Rohingya. But the numbers are really, really tragic. More than 6,700 Rohingya Muslims, including at least 730 children under the age of 5, were killed in the first month of this struggle, August of 2017. And finally today, January 1st, marks the day when marijuana is fully legal in California for medical or adult use. Now, the media often uses the term recreational use, but I want you to know that I'm pretty conscious of calling it adult use because recreational use makes it sound like it's, just silly. Certainly, people smoke pot to become silly, to get the munchies and have a good time. But what's really critical here is that voters overwhelmingly passed medical marijuana legalization more than 20 years ago. And we overwhelmingly passed legalization for adult use. But despite assurances to the small cultivators of cannabis here in California that they would not be trampled by big tobacco or other corporate interests when legalization hit, well, the rules that were developed don't put any restrictions on the big growers. And the long-term black market growers are crying foul. Similarly, here in Marin County, California, 71% of voters approved legalization for adult use. But our local officials have been dragging their feet about allowing stores or retail locations to open up. Currently, there is a single outlet for medical dispensing in Marin County, and there are delivery services that people can access through the internet to have weed delivered to your house. But you can't go to a retail shop and buy it. And there are all kinds of NIMBY backlashes that surface when the local governments say, hey, why don't we put a weed store here? And so there are going to be a lot of problems as this is implemented. And I'm really sorry to see a state where we claim to be so progressive operate in such a regressive way. And tell adults who have the legal right to buy marijuana, just go to the street like you've been doing for the last 50 years. Sure, it's illegal, it's criminal, it's a black market, but who cares? Thanks for listening. I'm Peter B.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails.